All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, welcome everyone to our next session. Our next talk is from Geoffrey. Geoffrey works as a quality and team performance coach for Ordina. Hi, Geoffrey. So you were the Dutch software testing champion of 2018 and are now a quality coach. So what motivated you to make this change?
Well, yeah, thank you, Jonas. So basically, I've been working in testing for the past 8 years, and the last 2 years just gave me another focus, right? So quality always has been something that was on my mind and a big topic for me. Only it shifted from maybe a project where we used to work on to products to coaching and a bigger organization, and now in helping teams to maximize the value output they have and becoming high performance. So basically, it motivated me to change a little bit in direction, but still, quality is really important for me.
That's very cool. So you're also focusing on raising the quality of teams, just like you just mentioned, and the value they produce. So I feel like this is in today's world more relevant than ever. So I'm more than curious about the characteristics you described for high quality teams and how to actually create such teams. So without further ado, I'm handing the word over to you.
Oh,
Have fun,
thank
everyone.
you. Thank you. So yeah, first of all, guys, a short introduction. Thank you for that, Jonas. You already see the Marvel team. We're gonna highlight some of their journeys and things from a perspective of the Avengers. But we're gonna talk about high performing teams and my experience with that. So first of all, I want to start with something somewhere earlier this year. Someone told me the following. Sadly, 50% of my job is only doing IT stuff or using my IT craftsmanship, and the other 50% is communication. So whilst he said that, it got me thinking, and actually that's very true, because I think if you really look at it, only 50% of your time is really spent in programming, maybe you're testing or automating or analyzing the real value that you're going to deliver. And the other 50% that we talk about is about collaboration, discussions, learning, presenting, all kinds of things that have to do with communication. And that is actually also the focus for this talk. I know we have a lot of IT people, have a lot of IT talks, but I'm going to talk about communication and the big things from there, which are really relevant for our job and for our life. So looking up high performing teams, we get a couple of nice descriptions, and I'm not going to read them out. You can see them on the screen. But what stood out for me is that a couple of words: all members contributing, purpose, common goal, more together than apart, goal focused, collaborate, innovative, and produce, goal oriented, hyper focused, achieving clear and outstanding results, collaboration, and innovate. And those are the words that stood out. So that got me thinking, and there's way more words that you can find when you look up definitions. There are like 100 different definitions of a high performing team. So it got me thinking, what would I say that would be a high performing team? Well, then you start taking it apart, right? So you look at the characteristics of a team. So I coach 11 teams currently, some more intensive, some less intensive, some are already been there with customers for 2 years. So what our company does is we provide teams to our customers, and they deliver value in their context, in their area. And 11 of those teams I coach at a big bank called Rabobank. What you clearly see is that these topics really come back in the high performing teams. They have a clear purpose and common goals. They really have a high level of trust and respect. And that really takes back towards communication. They have the right skills. They have focus. They have accountability. They have quality. They continuously improve themselves. They deliver valuable results. And I think one of the most important things to mention here as well is fun. Most of the teams that I see, they have a lot of fun. They do really cool things, and they spend time in having fun with each other. and some of them are more like a close family or a group of friends than maybe even a team. So we'll touch on these topics during the presentation, and we'll talk about what, for example, the right skills are, how you can achieve focus, what is accountability, and of course for you all, quality is important as well. So how do you get there? So then I started thinking, what would be my definition? And for me, it's a group of individuals with their own specialism. So everybody brings their own thing to the team, who focus on achieving their common goals and continuously improve to grow into a high-performing team. And with a side note, you need a journey for that, because you can't just create a high-performing team with a couple of people there, like the Avengers. They are all superheroes, put them together, and the first thing that happened in the movie is, if you're a fan, you know that they start arguing, they start fighting, right? So it required a journey to come to the position where they were this fighting group that really helped each other and became better. So I'll be using their journey as a metaphor as well, because for most of you, you are within IT, so you at least know them, and you will know what I'm talking about. And I will use some examples to tell you how I handled certain situations. So the way to high performance, right? So Bruce Tuckman already had a philosophy about that, and he basically talked about five stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And basically, what you see on the curve as well is that team effectiveness and team performance start at a certain point, but start to drop. And in the forming phase, you basically see that the team gets to know each other, gets adjusted to each other, and then when they start to work together, they start to argue and they start to discuss. That's what's called the storming phase. And the storming phase is a good thing. So you need this because people will build on like trust, and they will know how to discuss with each other. So this is a really important starting point for teams. And based on storming, we will use norming and performing. So I have a poll for you guys that I forgot to send out in the beginning. So I'll publish it now because I'm really curious. We're with over 40 people in the talk, almost 50. What kind of job do you have? Because then I know what kind of perspective I can take within the presentation, what you maybe find more interesting or not. So that is for me a relevant question. And then I'll pose a second question, because I really want to know, where do you think your team is in if you talk about the stages of high performance? Or do you think you're more of in the forming stage where you still get to know each other? Are you in the storming phase, constantly discussing with each other, still building on trust? Or are you in the norming phase? Do you have like a good way to work together? But there's still a lot of room to optimize and to build on accountability, for example. So make sure that you feel accountable for the things that you have. Or are you already in the performing phase, where you as a team also look at value and the value you produce, and maybe help the organization optimize and maximize that value? So I'm gonna put in that poll as well. So I'm really curious about the results. So I'm going to take a first look. Who's in here? Of course, TestCon. I love you guys, testers and QA engineers. The most of you are that. And we have some management, so that's good as well. There's definitely some tips in there for managers, for Scrum Masters, Agile coaches. We have a mixed audience, I see, but yeah, I will highlight some testing and management perspectives. I see that are the most votes. And based on which phase you are in, I think most of you voted the norming phase, right? So cool. I think also a lot of you still struggle in the storming phase, but let's see where we end up with the talk. So I already said by mistake 6 stages for us as a company. We have a stage before forming, and that is actually selecting a team. And selecting a team, you can imagine that you have to build a team together based on certain factors. So I wanted to take you with you for a short introduction of how we do it, but because maybe you will have a new project or a new availability for a team. So how can you tackle that? How can you do that? Right. So for me, it starts with a clear goal. What is this team going to do? What product are they going to work on? And there are multiple things you can use for this, but the product goal canvas is really great, for example. And basically what you try to do is you create a good understanding on the goal. What is this team trying to achieve? What kind of technologies do they use? What business value are they promoting? What is the solution that they're going to develop? So you get a good understanding of what kind of context do you need. So you know which kind of people you need in the team, right? And based on knowing that, you can select the team. And what I tend to see is that we look for a team with really high skilled people, but maybe the difficulty is not high for that assignment. So we really try to discuss this with our clients and our customers to see what is the difficulty of the assignment and what is the level of skill you really need. Because most of the time I see our customers ask for a high skilled person, but then the difficulty must be high as well. Otherwise they get bored. And we can't afford that because people only work as efficient as possible if they're not bored, if they're challenged enough, and if they can really do what they want. So how do you know that? Well, that's actually by asking them the question, do you see enough challenges for yourself? Where do you want to grow? What do you want to know? So a second part of selecting a team is knowing who's going to be in the team and who's going to take part in that, right? So that is an important part as well. And then we got to the selection part. So selecting a team is important, right? So most of the time we look at performance. We want to have that person that really performs really well. So we always look at the high performer. And in the best situation, you want a high performer with a high trust. So trust in this sense means like, do I trust you with my money and my wife, for example, right? So trust is really fundamental in the beginning, but do I get the feeling I can trust you with those things? And ultimately, you want to look for, did I just close it?
We
Is it still
can
working? Yeah. Okay.
we can still see it.
Yeah, my screen just popped black, so that's why. Sorry for that. That's always the downside of switching between the tools. So to continue my story, we always look for a high performer of high trust and a medium or a medium performer for high trust, because that trust element is really important. You need to trust someone in the team, and you never want this person in your team. If I'm going to ask you who's the asshole in your team, that's probably the high performer of low trust. That's the guy who knows everything better, that's doing it for himself, and that's not in a team player. So you don't want to have this guy in your team. A high performer of low trust is the asshole in the team that will make sure that your team doesn't perform as a team, right? So we all know that, for example, in the Avengers, there were a couple of assholes in the team, right? But they, at the end, they really came to become a team. So in the selection, it's already good to take to look for that and see if that works. And then the team forms together. So in the first Avenger team, at some point they all come together for the first time, and they already start in the forming. They start kind of show off how good they are and how good they think they are. So forming is a stage that's probably also not that relevant for you guys because you are already in a team. But if you ever get to restart a team, or you're in a team and you think this is beneficial, because I think it can really be beneficial for you guys, what we do is when we selected the team, we start with a 2-day team starter kickoff, a team Kickstarter, as we call it. It's basically we use the team canvas, right? So the team canvas is an online tool you can use. You can download it and you can fill it in with your team. And we use 2 days to get to know each other and to talk about how are we going to collaborate. What is our goal? What are we trying to achieve? Why does a customer pay money for us as a team? What is our purpose? Why do we exist, for example? So those are really relevant questions, but we also talk about the individual. What do you as a person want to achieve? What do you want to get out of it? And how are we going to work together? What do we need? What are our values? So we use a couple of assignments and liberating structures basically to go through the team canvas and to fill it out. It's not the goal to fill it out, but the goal is to get to know each other and create a soul of a team, like the basics for a team. And this is a tool you can reuse as a team in the future as well to basically get back to and see if you can adjust it and become better at it. And another tool we use is we look at communication, right? So that communication part I told you about, communication is really important. And it's basically about a couple of things that we'll touch on later. But in the beginning, when you don't know the people, it's good to look at, for example, how do they prefer to communicate with each other? And for that is what we use is we look at communication preferences. We have this simple test called DISC, but there are like there are many tools in this fashion. And what we do is we look at what are their individual profiles, what do they prefer when communicating, and we talk about pitfalls. So what if person A, which is maybe a low-paced person and people-oriented, comes across person B in the team, which is really a high-paced, task-oriented person, right? So they have, the one is about people and taking it slow. The other one wants to achieve results really fast. So that is gonna, of course, that's gonna collide, and that is important to discuss within a team. You don't have to, right? It's not a 100% future-proof way of working, but it is about talking about where do your preferences lie and is there a potential that we might disagree, and then it makes it easier to discuss with each other what the problems might be. And this helps to really start in the storming phase. This is all what you do before you even really go to that storming phase, because understanding each other is essential in this case. And besides putting a lot of time in your in your team, it's also good to make sure that you have a proper backlog and really put things in the right perspective so you know how to work and where you're going to. And event storming is a technique, and you can look it up after this talk, which will help you to basically to write down the basics in what kind of actions do we expect, what kind of actors are there, what kind of things do we need to produce from beginning to end, and out of that come user stories, examples, and impact. And from previous talks, I always talked about the importance of examples in refinements and things like that, and the impact they create. This really will help you to get those things straight and really use it. And then we end up in the storming phase, right? So the storming phase, I think the best movie to describe it is the Avengers Civil War, where they create two parties, and these two parties go head to head basically because they disagree on the same purpose of the team, right? So they have a different understanding on how they should save the world. And we have Team Cap versus Team Iron Man, and they go head to head. And in the end, they collide quite bigly, and it disrupts the entire team. So there's multiple separate teams. So I haven't seen it this heavy within teams, but I've seen the storming phase really take its toll on teams as well. So what do I normally see when I look at teams in the storming phase, right? So these are all signals that you might still be in there, because interpersonal conflicts or talking behind people's back, like gossiping about persons, frustrations between team members, maybe the perception that people are slacking, or misperceptions, or not coming to a common understanding. Those are all things you can see in trust and respect. So trust and respect is really important for this part. And I had a team that basically really was struggling with this. And what you really could see is that they didn't build enough trust to start trusting each other. So in this case, a tester had a different idea on how to test than a developer. The developer, well, we all know developers, right? So big compliment for them for building great software, but they shouldn't be discussing about how we should test, right? So there was a big argument. He thought that in this case he would be testing enough by doing unit tests, and the tester wanted to do more tests. And then, there was a big argument keeping going on and on. It cost more time than maybe just doing it. So you really have to work that out, and I come back to how you can do that, right? So this is really something you see in the storming phase. And also, it's not, if the goal is not clear, you start to question, what are we doing? Why are we doing things? What is our vision? Right? So sub teams may be created, right? So one team versus another, and that is not what you want. That is totally not performing. And some of you might even recognize this, that there's one person in the team that you talk a lot about, or with, about another person in the team, right? So that is definitely what you want to get rid of in teams, because you're one team, you're accountable, you work together. And that is also where the pyramid of Patrick Lencioni comes in, right? So for the storming phase, to get through the storming phase, you need trust, because you need to be able to trust each other. You need to be able to have the basic understanding on how what people are like, to trust each other. And then the next stage comes the fear of conflict. In this case, you need to be able to have conflict on content, and conflicts are important, right? So you need to have conflicts. You need to discuss with each other. It sounds like a negative word, but it's really positive, because having conflicts means that you are passionate about your job, that you can talk about it in the team's context, and you get to an agreement. And then the next stage, you need conflicts to get to commitment. And if people are really silent and you don't have conflicts, then probably the trust might also not be good in your team. So really look out for that. And if you get to commitment, you commit to the same goal, the same technical direction, and you really can commit to the product. And then the next goal, accountability. So taking your accountability for the stuff you deliver, or taking the accountability as a team to deliver results. And those results, and caring about the results, is important to basically go to the last level. Because if you take responsibility for the results, you're not only thinking about the product you're building, you're also thinking about the impact. And we'll come back to this, to the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni a couple of times, because it's a really strong element within the phases as well. And the first 3 are really for storming, right? So I had that argument between that tester and that developer, right? So that might be the best example I can name for you guys. And they were not seeing eye to eye. So we were sitting down, and I explained to them the following, which is called the Johari window, which is, guys, you really don't know each other enough, I think, because you're looking at things from a different perspective. Start to talk out how you see things, right? So the Johari window works as following. You have two sides to this, right? So you have the no to others, which is the part which you know, um, which others know, and the unknown to others, what others don't know about you, and then what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself. So basically, the know to yourself and the knows others is the open arena. That is what everybody knows about each other. So the tester knew the age of the developer, and vice versa, right? So then what he didn't know, because that was not known to himself, was that the tester was kind of taking a, how do you say that, a demanding position, which basically made sure that the developer didn't talk about. So that was unknown to, in this case, the tester. And then the other part came to be visible as well, because what the developer didn't know was that, based on how he was treated in the last team and how his arguments or his position was not recognized, he was putting out a different self form to the team. So that was the hidden self. And what they did is, so if you talk to each other, like give feedback and get feedback, you make sure that the open arena becomes bigger. So the open arena becomes bigger. That means that you know more about the other person, and the other person knows more about you, and that shifts the potential of the open arena. And if you understand each other better, like in this case between the tester and the developer, you know how you can approach each other better. So it took a good while to have this discussion with them. It wasn't easy, but in the end, they understood each other better. And that meant they could have conflicts, because they were finally open to discuss things without being a personal, without being not listening to each other. So that opened the window for them. And then in conflict, you really have this part about you have to have conflicts, right? And conflicts are really difficult sometimes to get out of. And that has to do with how a discussion is being held. And basically, what I use a lot is I use transactional analysis to see how discussions are or conflicts are being held. And what you want is transactional analysis basically goes out of three forms. You have the child, which is child behavior. You have adult, which is the basically the thinks positive and doesn't judge, and parent, right? And parent and kid are basically the first two behaviors we learn from life. A kid, we're born as a kid, so we basically do as a kid. Then the next one is parent, and a parent tries to teach a kid, so that's the second thing we learn. And the third is adult. But adult is actually the form that we want to do because it doesn't judge, it doesn't um, um, it basically it's not negative, it's really about facts and figures. So that is the way we want to have a conflict or communicate with each other. And parent is, you have two kinds of parents. You have the critical parent and you have the learning and feeding parent. And you have three kinds of kids. You have like the rebelling kid, the adjusting kid, and the free kid, right? So if you really are into this, I would say look it up because it's like a topic on its own to talk about. But this is a really good way to look at discussion. So if you ever are stuck in discussing something with someone, look at this. This can really help you. Moving on to the third one, right? So commitment. So there's one way to get commitment, and that is making sure we're all on the same page. And I really like the way that Simon Sinek talks about the golden circles. Start with why, then how we're going to do it, and what is the thing that we're going to build. And basically, you can do that because to really invest in the team canvas and the product canvas. So again, if you're stuck here, go back, because what we do in an early stage in forming, you can reuse here, and that is how you create commitment. And if you can also ask for commitment at that point. But do you agree that we're going to build this product? Do you feel really relevant with it? And you want to achieve that commitment. And then if you don't feel really committed to the product, at least try to feel committed to the team, because you need that to at least go further. And I would say you if you really want to reach the highest level in the pyramid and become high performing, you need to be committed to the goal. You need to be committed to the product as well. And that is always a difficult choice, especially if you're working with a company and you don't agree with the product, then it's going to be hard. Right. So norming. In norming comes the position where you all work together, and the end game is a good moment where you see the team go norming, and maybe even end game really goes about norming, from norming to performing. I would say that the Avengers are in the end are a high performing team, and I'll show you why. But the norming is the moment where they all work together in this big end fight, right? So, what does a team in norming do? They take accountability. They feel accountable for the things they produce, right? So not only one person, we don't point at people in the team. No, it's we as a team feel accountable. If something is not tested correctly, we as a team are going to fix it, not the tester is going to fix it. And that is where a big fundamental comes from. You need a lot of fun to come to this level, but you also need accountability, team accountability. So what can you do team accountability? Well, you need to refine together, you need to work together, and you need to help each other. That is the most important thing that you need to do here. So we're already past sub teams or stuff like that. You really need one team working on the same things together, right? So focus. And focus you can create by having one goal, which is the most important one in the commitment phase. And then for working together, you can really create that team accountability. So let's talk about accountability, because I've used this example in the past as well, but I really like, showing cakes. You're all getting hungry now, especially after the break. So normally in a conference there's not enough food, but now you have to have your food in your own home. So a cake, I want sprinkles, right? So maybe the product is good, it looks good, but it's not what the customer wanted. So it's not really accountability, right? So Best wishes, Susanna. Underneath that, we will miss you, right? So, similar example. It's not accountable. It is a big mistake, right? You can make mistakes, but maybe not, you don't want them in production, right? So, um, and happy birthday, Calvin. In parentheses, green, and the color is red. I mean, these things are if you feel accountable, if you've worked together, if you're close to your customer, you wouldn't have produced this. So I know a lot of teams work Scrum nowadays, or something that looks like Scrum, maybe Kanban. It doesn't really matter how you work. For me, it comes with the following. When you work together, you refine together, you develop and test together, you do that at the same time, and you automatically create your documents, right? So that's how simple it is. And then it becomes really difficult because I have to teach a lot of teams how to refine together. Because what I see a lot of times is that a business analyst will create a user story, will put a lot of information in there, and will give it to the developers. And then the developers start developing it, and then afterwards the testers start testing it, and then they will probably discuss somewhere in between and then deliver it. And it's really a long track with not a lot of collaboration. So you need to collaborate, and that starts with your refinement, right? So refinements for me are always a hot topic. I think I generally give every 2 or 3 weeks a workshop or training about refinements, and that is basically because Scrum doesn't tell a lot about how to refine. It only has one sentence in there, and that's the product backlog refinement is the act of breaking down and further defining product backlog items into smaller, more precise items. And it goes on for one more sentence or two actually, and that's it, right? So how do you do that? How do you refine together? And that is for me something I spend a lot of time in, and that's probably something where you as a tester can make the difference as well. Is you need to make sure that you have a shared vision up front. What are we going to do? What are we going to create? What are we going to refine? Right? And at the end, you want to make sure that everybody understands it. For me, this is a team activity. You don't have to do all the refinement or everything together, but at least the main session is an all team refinement, because then you get the whole team involved. And if you want to share your vision, if you want to explain things, use examples. Examples are the easiest thing to use because they describe behavior. Using examples will really benefit you. And I know for some cases it's hard, but just start doing it. And if you really do that, we can look at the chart from Ambler, which was based on the one of Alistair Cockburn. If you are on the right, you are high in richness of communication and communication effectiveness, which is working together at a refinement. Or you write a user story and someone gets it, which is a paper, or maybe even with some extra details in there, but it's a documentation option and not a modeling option, and it's not effective at all. So stop doing your refinements on your own, doing them together with your team, invest in your refinement, because it will really benefit you as a team. And how can you start with that? Well, that's very simple. It's called example mapping, and example mapping is the most powerful, easy way to just try it to see if it works. You hang a story on the top in a yellow sticky note, and now online you can do it on a Miro board or on a mural board or on a whiteboard, online whiteboard from Teams, for example. You hang a sticky note with the color yellow on the top. Our user story is that we want to, and let's create an example because I just talked about examples, that we want to have a machine that creates baskets of apples and pears. And then one of the rules that apples only fall in the apple basket. So that's a rule in blue. And then another rule is that we only want pears in the pear basket. Then an example is if an apple comes, so if a pink lady, let's make it really precise, which is an apple, comes to the machine, it will fall in the apple basket. If a conference, which is a pear, falls in the machine, it will go to the pear, right? So those are really concrete examples with entry criteria, exit criteria, what we expect, right? So those are really strong in that. Second part is that you also might want to have something about a kiwi. Someone put a kiwi in the machine. What happens? Well, if a kiwi enters the machine, it doesn't fall in the basket. So that is another example. For example, the pear, it doesn't fall in the pear basket. It's another example. So this is pretty simple. Do an assignment like this. Make it easy. Start with something you all know. Create an example, and then use it on your own way of working, and it will make it really visible and really nice. And you also can ask questions what to do with, let's say, bananas, and you can discuss that, or you can ask someone on the business side. So you know there's an open point which you need to discuss before you can pick it up. If you start doing that, you can work from business goals to scope. You can use your scope to make examples, and you can also use specification by example if you prefer. That's also what this example came from, or this picture came from. When you have those examples in your refinement, make key examples. Those key examples will become your tests as well. You have your specification with examples, which is very clear for everyone. You can build it and test it at the same time, and you have your documentation updated at the end, which is called living documentation, and you can run it, right? So the funny thing is a lot of testers use Cucumber or SpecFlow or something similar. And it was never meant to be a test automation tool from the start. It was meant as a collaboration tool. So start using it as a collaboration tool, and you'll know what the benefits are, and you really can start using it. So coming to the performing part, right? So performing part, in the end, we see two things happening, more things happening that for me are performing, but we see Doctor Strange move up and hold back the water so his teammates don't get splashed with all the water that's come free from a dam breaking. And we see Iron Man, of course, tragically ending it all by dealing the final blow. So performing, it can be about self-sacrifice, but it's more about taking one for the team as well. And also having the hard discussion, because I don't hope or expect that you will be, self-sacrificing for the team. That would be a little bit much, but at least sacrificing to give that hard discussion, to talk about the difficult things, right? So it's all about results. You want to focus on results. If you're a high performing team, you focus on results, you focus on value, and you focus on what that customer wants from you, or what the company wants from you. That strategic goal is really important. So I like to refer to evidence-based management here, and also the use of metrics, which is really beneficial, because then you know what kind of value you deliver and where you stand, right? So evidence-based management has this nice graph where you put the strategic goal. Maybe the goal from your team canvas can be a strategic goal. Then you can have the common goals, which are intermediate goals you're going to achieve somewhere in the next half year, maybe year. And then you have your current state, and you know what the gap is, right? So if you keep track of this, you know where you stand. And if you want to know how this works, I would say look up the evidence-based management guide. That will really help you. But I've got some tips for you to start with metrics as well, which is a little bit more easy, but can really help you, right? So evidence-based management talks about a couple of different metrics, and that's also good to know for you as a team, because what impact is your team making is one of the questions. So what value do we deliver? But also the other one, and that's more simple for us to start with, is are we continuously improving? And continuous improvement talks about operational value. The operational value you can measure by looking at processes or output. Our direct output is something, if we create as a team, is, for example, the number of releases. That's really output. But that tells us something about, for example, the ability to innovate or the time to market. How quickly can we respond? Right? So the other two are about market value, outcome or impact. The difference for me within outcome is something that we can measure probably in a short period of time, more based on the intermediate goal, and impact is more on the strategic goal, right? Are we seeing that we're making steps toward that? That talks about current and unrealized value. And you can see metrics like customer satisfaction, but also market shares for the long term. Are we contributing to the big goal in the end? Right? So how do you start with metrics? I really like this technique, because it's really simple. And I've looked at OKR, I've looked at other ways of getting to metrics. But for me, goal question metric is the most simple one, especially because it focuses on the goal again. Having a goal or having a common goal for a team is really important. If you have a clear goal, you can ask the right questions. And if you ask the right questions, you can find the right metrics, right? It's started by Victor Baselli for measuring software within NASA. And we've been using it within our company for quite a while, even on strategic level. I've been using it with teams for a while. It's a really simple and effective way to get to metrics. And a golden tip is to focus on 5-6 metrics if you want, not more. And quality metrics are really good, because I think one of the key things for any team is to show that they deliver quality. And quality and value go hand in hand, because you can deliver great quality, but it should also deliver value, right? So think about those things. And another way is if you want to know how high performing you are, do a continuous improvement check, right? So as testers, I think we also value the quality of our own team, and this is kind of a benchmark check you can use. So I'll share the slides with you. You will have all these nice slides, so you can just look it up and you can use them. Some top tips if you want to keep high performing: make sure you appreciate your team, you challenge them, keep people challenged. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose from Daniel Pink. How to motivate people. That is really important for that. For leaders, if you have a team, keep them together, because you see this as a journey. If you keep interrupting, breaking, and changing the team, you will have to start over again. So that costs a lot of time, right? So keep your team together and shift the work towards a team, and keep your eye out for hero behavior, because hero behavior means that someone feels himself more important than others. And although we talk about Marvel and superheroes, that's something you don't want. And I wanted to end with this slide. We celebrate team birthdays, which is something really great. This is one of my top teams. They have this nice T-shirt with their own logo, and they came together to celebrate their second birthday. The first half year, I had to spend more time with them than the last half year, because they really are a self-sustaining, high-performing team, and they really produce and they really create value. And that is something really cool. So celebrate those successes. As leaders, make sure you take time for that, because it's really important. Thank you for attending this talk, and I hope you had fun. I think we have some time for some quick questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So we have a few questions in here. So maybe you can also, if you don't manage to get all done, all right, there's your email. So I guess we can ask them there. So I will just jump right into it. So the first question we have is, would you prefer a good team of heroes or a team of good engineers?
Well, like I said, maybe the last example is good. I like good engineers, normal people that are good, but the team even makes them better. So they are a team of good engineers, and I think this team accelerates every one of them in good times, but also in bad times. So for me, good engineers.
All right. So straight to the next question. So would you remove high performers, quit them, coach them? What coaching approach would you suggest?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. I think it's always a team decision, right? So you want to look up towards, you want to make sure that you discuss these things in the team. If you have high performance, that's not bad. If it influences the team, then you should think about what you're going to do. If you're going to coach them, make them aware, show them what they're doing towards the team. So I would say show them what their behavior might bring, not really remove them.
All right. So I get the pop-up stop streaming. So I'm not sure if we have like time for more question then, but
I think the stream stops.
the stream stops.